Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff, Mosher, Adam, Caplan, and man, has it been an amazing week in Philadelphia sports. We got the Phillies in the playoffs and the Eagles with a huge Sunday night matchup against the Dallas Cowboys, 5-0 versus 4-1. So first place in the NFC East early on the line. So we got a lot to talk about. We're going to break down this game as much as we can. And then, of course, Adam and I will be joined by Greg Cosell and Jason Avant Sunday starting at 5 p.m. for the Inside the Birds pregame live show that I think is going to be one of our best shows, Adam. I can't wait for that one.
Can't wait at Rivers Casino down in on Delaware Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody loves the winner, right? Yeah, it'll be phenomenal. It's Eagles Cowboys, and it just so happens that both teams are really good. We'll get into kind of what we're hearing, what the tape looks like for Dallas, and talked to Cosell Thursday night. He had some great stuff, which I'm actually going to use tonight. There's some certain way that he looked at this matchup, and we've run some stuff by some people we trust around the league, and it's fascinating because Dallas' defense is so good, and so they're probably the deepest defense in the NFL. They're deep at every position.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't always been like this, although I wouldn't say they're super deep at the linebacker. They're really deep on the D line, super deep. Probably the deepest secondary in football. They got most of their injured guys back, so it's fun. Can't wait to talk to Avant not only about what he thinks of the matchup, what the Dallas week is like. I get it's only week 6, so you don't want to be crazy putting so much into it. Yes, it's a divisional game. It's the hated rival, but it's week 6. The good thing for the Eagles is no matter what happens, they got the bye next week, kind of a relatively early bye.
Right. No, so the bye comes at a good time. The Eagles will go into the bye. They come out against Pittsburgh the following week. Good time for them because no matter what happens, let's say they win, Adam, 6-0. I mean, 6-0 with 11 games left theoretically means they could go 5-6 in those 11 games and still win 11 games and be a top 3 seed, which is unbelievable because they're clearly not going to go 5-6 in their last 11 games. I mean, the schedule is light and they're just not bad. So even if they were to lose to Dallas though, Adam, and they, only, you still have 5 wins before going into the bye week with 11 games left. So, I mean, it's at this point, I'm not trying to be a jinx or anything, but at least 10 wins feels like a given at this point. Look, and then the ability to get maybe the number 1 seed or 11 or 12 wins is certainly there.
Funny, when we did our preseason projections, when we gave what the record would be, I think we both agreed at 12-5.
I said they were a 10 to 12 win team. I didn't know how exact.
Right, but I thought they'd get 12. And honestly, we were definitely right. They not only did they have, I gave them a top 3 schedule. They have the best schedule in the NFL. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It sets up so well. The teams are pretty much, for the most part, what we thought. There've been a couple surprises in terms of what some of their teams will look like, but Dallas is better than I thought. A lot better. Even without Dak Prescott, which is just absurd. They do play the Packers. The Packers, offensively, they're just not. They don't have it as. I'm sure they'll get more into gear. They're generally a very good regular season team. Not as good in the playoffs under Aaron Rodgers of late. The Titans have turned their season around. They were terrible to start. They've won 3 in a row. They're on their bye. But the shocker is the Giants. I scratch my head every week. Like, Barkley's going to have to keep that Superman suit on and probably sleeps in it. It's just really unbelievable. Coaching matters. The coaching's been just fantastic. They're playing over their means. We'll see if they're a wild card team in the end, but kudos to them. The Saints aren't as good as people thought. And look, it's a very good schedule, no doubt.
Yeah. They've also caught a couple of teams at the right time. The Packers are clearly not what the Packers will probably be late November, December when they figure it out. Same thing with the Titans. The Titans are a team in transition. They caught them at the right time. Who else they beat? Washington? No, they didn't play Washington yet, did they?
For the Giants?
Yeah, I don't think they played Washington. I forget who they played.
Okay, so they beat the Titans by 1. They came back and closed it. They won in week 1.
Right.
They barely beat a bad Panther team. A terrible game offensively. One of the worst offensive games I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad as last Thursday night's game. They beat the Bears. The Giants did, and another yawner.
Yeah.
And they had an amazing comeback win, down 17-3. They were so inept offensively in the first half.
Right.
Barkley ran all over him. Jones made plays when he had to. Look, they're 4-1. Coaching matters. They don't beat themselves. That's the thing is they don't have a lot of talent, particularly in offense. They've got all sorts of issues,
Mm-hmm.
but they're really well coached. And when you're well coached and you buy in, you give yourself a chance.
There you go. All right. The bye week also comes at a good time for us to kind of reevaluate where the Eagles are at, or evaluate where they're at after 6 games. And we'll do our second Patreon live stream this next Wednesday. So whatever the date is. What's that?
Tuesday. This Tuesday.
Sorry, Tuesday, the 18th. Whatever the 18th is. That's
Okay.
Tuesday. Correct. Right. We're going to do that. We have a slew of new Patreon subscribers. So this will be the first time they have the ability to jump on with us and get their question answered. So we really look forward to doing it. It's going to be a fun time. And then of course, after that, for our Patreon subscribers, we'll have our Chalk Talk series will continue. We're getting a former NFL defensive coordinator on, and we'll hint a little bit more toward that when
Give one hint.
Ooh,
He's
got a
not
hint.
an old guy, and he hasn't been out of the league very long. That should probably narrow it down like to about 4 or 5 names. No, it's not Vic Fangio. Someone on my Patreon chat said it was funny because of he seemingly shows up everywhere with the Eagles. He's like a quasi consultant, but supposedly not a consultant.
Well, I don't know. The reports lately are out that he's the consultant. So I mean, there have been like 3 or 4 reports that he's a consultant.
Well, whatever we've asked, they've tried to downplay it.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the issue is who's the offensive senior assistant. That's not. Remember when Jim Bob Cooter showed up on the website?
That's right. They got a secret one in there.
What's that?
It's like, do they have a secret one? Some guy lurking the.
It's so funny. Sirianni, he dropped it. Remember, he just dropped it. Oh yeah, and Jim Bob Cooter does this and that. We're like, what?
Yep.
What are you just trying? Just drop that.
I know. Crazy.
So, okay.
So if you do want to join our Patreon channel, and of course we do Discord chats, Adam does one every Wednesday night from 8 to 8, every Wednesday night from 8 to 8:30 p.m. and all sorts of other subscribers. We have a giveaway coming soon that I can definitively talk about starting next week. So I'll look forward to that. For our Patreon subscribers, you go to patreon.com/Inside the Birds. That's how you become a subscriber to our Inside the Birds channel. Patreon.com/Inside the Birds. Q&A has been up. I hope people are checking out some of the videos I tweeted. They had a really amazing story, one about how Jason Avant got to wear the number 81, which was fantastic, especially in the post-TO era, because it's folded in there. And then they had a really awesome dialogue on what it's like being on the scout team. Not them, they weren't on the scout team, but what it's like when scout team players try to make a name for themselves at the wrong time. So that was a really good little anecdotal story that they told on the latest Q&A. So make sure you check that out on both the podcast platform and the YouTube channel. And of course, our interview with Jerry Kramer, if you haven't caught it yet, I'm not Jerry Kramer, not the Packer, but Jim Kramer from CNBC's Mad Money. Adam, for those who haven't watched, like, you can attest to this. We did the show together. I even said in the middle of the show, there's very few times that we do a show together that I'm hosting, the lead host, that I just completely lose control of the interview. I lost control and I was happy to do it. It was Kramer's that kind of guy.
It's funny. So you had asked me a couple questions. Like I said, I'm warning you, he's going to commandeer the interview, but in a good way. Because
Right.
He's a storyteller. He's hilarious. He's stream of conscious. You never know where he's going to go.
Definitely.
And he name drops like crazy. And he tells a great story about him and Howie Roseman. I'm not going to give it away. It's like I'm kind of like blown away by it.
Uh-huh.
You know if you hear the context, you may have to, because he's a Philly guy. He talks fast.
Right.
He's a really good dude, and obviously a major Philly sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's actually it looks like, so we put it on YouTube first, and he did it from his office at CNBC, and then we put it on the pod version. So yeah, that was a nice little surprise. I know Jim a little bit from we have him on Sirius XM on our fantasy show, and I've talked to him over Twitter, a couple times, and I never met him in person, but this was a nice little extra. This one we put out for free. It's not Patreon. Everyone can see this.
Yeah, it's on all of our podcasts and YouTube platforms. Great story about Howie Roseman. Great story about Frank Reich. Great story about him selling ice cream at the vet.
How about that?
How about that? And what he did to make money there. That was pretty interesting. Also a great story about, what was the other one that really I couldn't believe. There was and then something else in his childhood that he brought up. You couldn't believe he had the memory to even remember it, but it was some pretty insane stuff. So he's all fired up because he's a huge Phillies Phillies and Eagles fan. So it's a big weekend for Jim Kramer. Jim Kramer's going to be Jim Kramer. He's going to be having a huge Sunday, right? Because he's got a couple of his wife is into the mezcal business. She makes a mezcal. So they're going to be doing some signings of the bottles in the area, and then he's going to go to the Eagles game at night. So he's got a lot of stuff going on there.
The funny thing about him is he grew up not too far from where I grew up. I grew up in Cheltenham. He moved to Cheltenham. He grew up in like Springfield, Montgomery County.
Right.
So after we were done the interview, I asked him about a couple things. He immediately knew what I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And he referenced like some things I've not thought about in 40 years.
Did you guys go to the same summer camp or something like that?
Yeah, we both went to Bluebell, but he's a little bit older than me. Bluebell Day Camp. I went to Twin. For those of you who I went to Twin Spring Farm. Bluebell, then Quicker Sports Academy. Almost everyone from my high school went there, and Catskills.
Gotcha.
But it was super cool because we were able to reminisce of being Philly boys or suburb boys.
There you go.
But it was great. We appreciate having him on and check. Yeah, so he's got what on? Is it Sunday the mezcal signing for the bottles?
Yeah, I believe it was. Yes, Sunday at 2 different locations, wine and spirits locations in Philadelphia. So yeah. All right. Let us begin. And of course we got the ITB post game show. Now a little note on that. We're not going to wait a half an hour from the end of the game because it's a night game. So we are going to start our post game show pretty much right after the end of the game. So just be ready to watch us.
Most likely. Yeah. Most games are 3 hours on the nose. Eagles had one this year, but it's exactly 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say 11:30, 11:40 Eastern. And the beautiful thing is because it's live, once it's done, you'll be able to see, if you want to view it, like on our platforms, and then it goes on the real podcast platform the next morning at 6 a.m. Eastern.
Yep.
Then away we go. It's bye week, and we'll have a bye week show. We'll do they say like the autopsy during the bye week. They say of the roster and what we think for trade deadline. I know we've had a bunch of questions. I promise we're going to address it.
Mm-hmm.
We'll address some things. I wouldn't get your hopes up because Eagles have such a good roster, but we'll address it.
We will. All right, let's get into some injuries for this game. It's certainly significant enough to discuss and spend some time on. The good news for the Eagles: Darius Slay with the arm, he's fine. He's going to play off the injury report. Yep. And Boston Scott off the injury report, so the rib is no longer an issue for him. However, was this new, by the way? I think I just noticed it later in the week that Kenneth Gainwell popped onto the injury report with the ribs.
Yeah, he'll play it rib. Right? The Eagles do this. They never put ribs. Yes, but 3 teams this week have ribs. I'm just saying, but I'm not saying. Gainwell, he'll play. Kelsey will play with the ankle. So with Dickerson, the ankle is new because he got hurt in the last game, missed 40 some odd snaps. But at the foot, it's interesting. The foot, which had bugged him since training camp, is not listed in the injury report. Same ankle he's dealt with for 2 weeks. He'll play. But offensively, here are the challenges. Mailata, we'll go to you in a second. And Jake Elliott, I'll talk about that. But what do you know on Mailata?
All right, here's what we know on Mailata. We've done a lot of work on this. So he wants to play. He would like to play. His shoulder, as we've been reporting on the last few podcasts in the pregame show, is still not right. It's not 100%. He's had it, he's getting his normal treatment on it. So he's trying to give it a go. You've seen the reporters tweet him at practice. It's my understanding, Adam, that when he's at practice, he's just that's him testing it out to see if it's getting better as the days progress. But I would not interpret him being out there at practice or whatever they're listing him throughout the week, limited, non-limited. I mean, Wednesday was a walkthrough, as any kind of sign that he's much closer. It's still bothering him. And if he does play, I would. What we understand, they're talking about maybe wearing a harness or a protective covering. And here's what it really comes down to: as he's testing it throughout this week, Adam, if it's people play through pain. Pain tolerance is part of the issue. The second part of the issue, though, is what you're able to do from a what's the word I'm looking at? Range of motion standpoint and a punch standpoint, right? If you can have effective range of motion and punch and deal with the pain, well, then good. All right. You'll see guys play through that. But if he or the coaches or the medical staff, as they all look at him, decide that, what they're seeing, or he's not feeling right and the punch isn't there. I mean, this is what you have Andre
Can't
Dillard
play.
for. Yeah,
Can't play.
yeah. So I still think, as we sit here today, my sense is that although he wants to play, it's going to be a very, very difficult for him to get out there and do it, because they don't want, the last thing he wants to do and the last thing the coaches want to do is for him to make it worse. Because even though the MRI came back clean, he's still feeling discomfort. So you worry like there might be something there that you're not seeing, or that it's, for whatever reason, it's taken a really long time to heal. It could be aggravated again. So we'll have to see how it goes, but I'm not very optimistic that he's going to be able to get it.
Yeah, I call them very questionable. No matter how they very questionable is worse than questionable. It's less than 50-50. The reason why I say that, here's the other thing I'll add. What they cannot do, they can't go into the game thinking, well, it's just okay. If he goes in and it doesn't feel, we'll just pull him. No, you have to feel like he could play. You don't go think you can only play half of the game. It's absurd.
Right.
Or he either plays a full game or he doesn't play at all. So I get all players want to play, but based on what you know about the injury, it sounds like he's dealing with something. I know that we both heard the MRI was clean. It doesn't mean that there's not something wrong going in there. It doesn't mean there's soreness or some other things going on with it that are not as serious. I'm just telling you, Jack Driscoll did not play quite as well as some people would make you think he did, based on multiple people we talked to. He did okay. For guys never played left tackle before, he did okay. But this is not only is this their toughest matchup, but it's not even close. Dallas has so many things on defense. I just, I know people are talking of Dillard. We'll see what we'll see if he's clear to play from a condition standpoint. And also, here's another thing someone said to me, just not someone from the Eagles, someone who is playing the Eagles soon. He asked me about what I knew about Dillard. I said, they're going with this conditioning thing. He goes, listen, he goes, that might be true. He goes, but how do you know it? He goes, because it was surgery. How do you know he's able to lift when he was?
Great point.
I didn't even think of that. Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, that's because the functional strength. They definitely don't want that out there unless he gives it out to the media. Not going to want that out there. I was, all right, that's a good point. I'm like, I'll use that. Thank you. So I thought about, okay, functional strength. They have to have that. You can't put him out there just because the injury healed doesn't mean he's strong enough.
Right.
So they got some challenges here, folks.
Yeah. I remember speaking to a lineman who played in the NFL, name doesn't matter, just about like how their injuries can be different than somebody of a different position. Even it could be the same injury or the same area, but it's different. And with linemen, they're so big and they have so much muscular tissue that when they do something like dive, like what Jordan Mailata did, and they land on it, it can get really swollen underneath. I mean, they have just and look, we're not even talking about a normal lineman here. We're talking about a guy who happens to weigh like 365, 370, who knows? I mean,
375.
Yeah, it's even this is a superhuman being. So again, like when it you just get worried, like when it bothers you that long and the MRI came back clean, is there something else going on there? And that's a question they're gonna have to answer if he doesn't start to feel better, significantly better in the next few days.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is a 17-game season. It's not 6.
Right.
They need him for the stretch run. This is it's Dallas divisional game, folks. Week 6. Coaches will tell you it's all about the long game, not the short game. That's just the way it is. That'll never change. So they got to have him when it matters, when it really matters. Playoff run, they're going to be in the playoffs. We all know that. This team can go a long way here. I'm not saying the SB word yet. I didn't feel that way until probably mid-season. Around the trade deadline, I'm like, wow, this team's got a chance to be really special. This team does, but the problem with their schedule is it's so favorable. This is what I love about the Dallas game. It comes at a good time because they have not played as well these last 2 weeks. I get the Jacksonville's a rain game, but there are no excuses for last week's game. They should have handled the Cardinals when they were up 14-0. They didn't.
Right.
So this will be a good test for them. And I don't buy the letdown against the Cardinals. I know some people throwing it out there. What was
I don't either.
14-0? I don't buy it.
No. So we'll see what happens at left tackle. But again, this is why you have Andre Dillard and didn't trade him because you want to be able to have a former first-round pick be able to take over left tackle if your starting left tackle got hurt. And so we will see if throughout the week, or as we get closer to the weekend here, if how Mailata feels, and then if Andre Dillard's ready to go. If not, it's kind of the same situation. If Driscoll has to be the guy, and then you worry about the depth behind that.
We'll talk right when we get to the preview of Eagles O versus Dallas D. Oh man, I've had such problem. I'm pretty definitive on picking Eagles every week. I've never even. It literally took me 2 seconds for every game. Even Minnesota, I just thought they're clearly better than them coming in. And felt that way going out. I'm struggling with this game like you cannot believe.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what the hell. I have a high respect for Kellen Moore's terrific. The
he
fan
is.
because of a couple calls last year, the fans point the stuff out on Twitter. Cowboys fans, and they're all over him.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little. Sometimes fans do that. They don't quite understand how brilliant the guy is. He's tremendous.
Well, like I said, I thought the Eagles going into the year, I thought the Eagles had the better 53,
Yeah.
but I felt that Dallas, if you remove Mike McCarthy from the equation, because really the coordinators are both the play callers, I thought that Dallas had the superior staff as far as play callers with Kellen Moore and Dan Quinn, and I stand by it. I do. I still think they
Dan
do.
Quinn's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He is. I give him so much credit for junking the Seattle cover 3 and being static, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't even recognize the defense that he ran with Atlanta. And by the way, we're seeing that around the league. Coaches are starting to evolve. They're not so. In fact, Seattle is almost running a third. They completely changed it with Clint Hurtt, the D coordinator.
Right.
I give him credit, man. You got to evolve offensively too.
You got to play to what your strengths are and what your personnel is.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
All right. Let us any other injury? Well, any Eagles injuries? No, I think everything's Patrick Johnson took his normal reps Thursday, so that's good.
Yeah, he only needs to see the independent route. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, 2 things.
Yeah, Maddox. Did we go through Maddox yet?
No, my bad. Oh,
yeah.
My bad. All right. So first of all, Josh Jobe has a shoulder injury. He only plays in special, so it's important to that. We don't know yet on him. Okay, Maddox. It's impossible for to rate the big 3 guy. Okay, Elliot. I'll throw him in there too.
Okay.
They're all the 3 concerns they have are Mailata, Elliot, and Maddox. We'll just update our reporting on all 3 players. So Elliot, I remember I said I'd be shocked if he played. He wasn't even close to playing.
Yes.
There was no even consideration of him playing. So his kicking right ankle, he's starting to work back a little bit. I would be surprised, not shocked. I'm not going to say shocked if he played. I'm going to say surprised.
Okay.
He's a little bit better off, but again, I'm not expecting him to. I need to learn more about what he does later today. Their practice. And plus the kid was not that they're going to rush Elliot back, but the kid the kicker did so well. I'm like, how about ice in his face?
I like how we can't call him anything other than Dicker the kicker now. Or you got to say the kicker.
I love it. I'm with all the good people on Twitter. It makes me laugh. So he's soccer guy and didn't love football growing up, but he sure likes it now. So right now I'd say he's very iffy clearly for fantasy. Do not have Elliott for a while. I wouldn't do that. Now Maddox, he's got a pretty decent ankle sprain, we were told. I gave you the sort of drama that he was dealing with. That people thought it was really bad when he got hurt.
Yeah.
He's starting to work his way back. Hard as if he had been like a guard or an interior lineman where you don't have to really run, I'd say, you know what, maybe tuts it out and plays today. This week it's Dallas, you want to win, you like go to the bye 6-0. He's going to have to make significant progress to be able to play. Not ruled him out yet. Don't feel like I did last week. I said on the last Friday show, forget it, barring a miracle with rehab ain't playing. I'm giving an outside chance, but it's just hard the position he plays to stick your foot in the ground on that injured ankle and be able to and everything you got to do. You got to run, man. You got to run.
So basically what we're saying here is Jake Elliott, no way, and very unlikely to see Mailata and Maddox pretty much.
Wouldn't say no way. I just don't see
no way is a little strong. But
last week was no way. This week is all right.
Right.
Outside chance.
All right. So an outside shot for all 3 of these important players to play. Now the Cowboys, we can move on to them. We know about some of their injuries. Obviously, Dak Prescott not going to play. That means Cooper Rush will play. Now, here's the weird thing. Dalton Schultz who's a tight end who has killed the Eagles in the past. I like him a lot. I think he's a good tight end.
That first game last year, the game.
Man, forget about it.
I think it's funny about him is he's not really athletic at all, and he was sort of like an afterthought when they drafted him. But Blake Jarwin towards ACL, he was the Cowboys tight end then. I mean, he got forced to play Schultz because they didn't have anyone else, and the dude gets open. He's just a route running freak, man.
Yeah. Now he's playing through a PCL injury, huh? That's a tough injury to play through for a tight end, I would think.
Yeah, he's got a grade 1 PCL. He missed time, and now he re-injured the knee last week. They're sort of optimistic that he'll play. he's important to what they do. Jake Ferguson's the rookie from
I like
Wisconsin,
Jake Ferguson. Yeah.
who backs him up. And that kid, one of my favorite new names, Hayden Hendershot, who's an undrafted free agent, because I was not familiar with him. Like, who is this guy in the preseason lighting it up?
Yeah.
Hayden Hendershot. He
That
will be
is
the
let me tell you something. That's an A+ last name. Not as good as Wild Goose, but
Rashad Wildgoose.
yeah, but sort of in the he definitely gets second team name. I like that.
Hendershot. I would say Hendershot. Like, who is it?
Pendergrass, like Brandon Pinderhughes. Is that
Right,
what you're
Penderhughes. That's it. Yes. I mean, Rube and I told you, Rube and I one day, we were just going through every different name we could remember. And without looking, we're now look it up. And I went out, Walter Abercrombie is my favorites.
Walter Abercrombie.
Rashard Mendenhall's brother, Walter Mendenhall.
Walter Mendenhall, yeah.
Right.
Randall Goforth. All right, we do this every one.
Man, right. But he was sort of recent, wasn't he? Like 16 or something?
He was a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. But yeah. So Dallas has got some injuries. So here you go for Dallas.
Yeah.
So Prescott, he did start working back on Thursday. He's not going to start. They don't. He was really wanting to play this game, but obviously he's just starting to work back. Injury. We just mentioned Dalton Schultz. Connor McGovern. He missed 2 games with a high ankle. He's back. But what they've done is they've played Peters a little bit, maybe at guard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking it's probably more because of the injury to McGovern.
Right. And Tyler Smith has played pretty decent at left tackle, so I guess they just want to move him out of there. Yeah.
I cannot wait to preview that because a very strong source gave me something how they need it. Philly needs to go against Tyler Smith. So Peters now has a new injury. I think this might be a second injury. It's a chest injury. Apparently he's going to be able to play backup guard and backup left tackle. And he's mentoring, as you know, he would mentor Mailata in a big way.
Right. So has he started yet, Adam?
I don't think so.
I thought he started 2 weeks ago. I didn't realize he was just still a backup.
Well, no, he what happens is they were rotating him and Connor McGovern. Well, he might have played for McGovern. McGovern was out, but I know he is definitely rotating with them because McGovern's still dealing with this high ankle sprain.
Okay. Boy, that's weird.
And then defensively, Quinn Bohanna is one of the starting D tackles. He didn't play last week, neck and shoulder. Yep. He's supposed to play this week. He took all his reps Thursday. Marcus Lawrence with the chest, he'll play. Parsons with the slate groin strain, he'll play. They took him out of the game, checked on him, put him back. J-Ron Kirsch will play this week with the MCL sprain. He started playing last week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
He is their tight end guy, 6'4". He's not the fastest guy in the world. This is the Vikings didn't think he was. They simply could not figure out a role for him when they had him. But boy, Dan Quinn sure hasn't. Donovan Wilson's really good. He's got an ankle sprain. So they play a lot of big nickel.
Yeah.
They'll move Kirsch down to the box sometimes because he's so long.
Right.
It's
tough defense, man. It really is. It's a good defense. Eagles got their work cut out. So let's get into it now. We'll start off with let's start off with the Cowboys offense against the Eagles defense, because I think people are sort of fascinated by what Cooper Rush has been able to do. The guy is 5-0 going back to last year. Wait, 6-0? No, 5-0, right? He won that start against the Vikings last year, and then 4 straight this year. And what's really fascinating about him, Adam, and you can say what's fascinating is he hasn't thrown more than 2 touchdowns in a game. He hasn't thrown for more than 235 yards, so you can fairly apply the game manager role. But he also is the only quarterback in the NFL with over 110 attempts who has not thrown an interception, and that's pretty good. I mean, he just faced a Rams defense that's pretty good. I mean, he's, I know he's faced some teams that aren't great offensively, but anytime you can throw that many passes without getting picked off and you're a backup quarterback, you're doing something really well.
That is phenomenal. I remember talking to the Vikings last year prior to their game with Dallas, and they said, he's better than you probably think, but I don't think they were overly concerned about him. And I hate to say he went off, he had 42 pass attempts, but he really drove the ball down the field well, and they actually blocked well for him. Mm-hmm. It was a stunner. I think this is the game when Mike Zimmer screwed up with time management or something. But nevertheless, he is absolutely, as you deemed him, he is a game manager. In fact, they hide him a little bit. They've been committed to the run. How many games are you going to have where the quarterback only throws the ball 16 times?
It's very rare, but I will say usually if you're hiding a quarterback with a run, you're trying to take the ball out of his hands because you're running well. But the Cowboys are an okay running team. They're like I think 15th in the NFL in rushing yards and 22nd in yards per carry. So that's it. Actually, to me, even more impressive is that they don't have a very fearsome running game. They have two guys who can run the ball, and one of them who's killed the Eagle. I mean, absolutely killed the Eagles and Ezekiel Elliott. But it's not like they're like the Eagles are a better rushing team. So the fact that he's probably had to be in some unfavorable down and distance scenarios, and they've had to punt a bunch of times. It's just on 3rd and long, he's not putting the ball in harm's way. That's impressive to me.
Yeah, no, it is. They just don't ask him to do a lot, but he manages it really well. As you said, he doesn't make mistakes.
Right.
The Eagles. Okay, so here's it's real simple, and I know they ran really well last week. The Cowboys did. They ran all over the Rams. In fact, Aaron Donald got hurt in that game, and maybe it had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a 1-2 punch. Elliot was the main ball carrier last week. He sold the game away. He's their 4-minute back. He always will be. Pollard had a huge run, a 57-yard touchdown run. He's a threat to break one long at any time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, by the way, in the pass game, he didn't have to do it last week because they only had 10 completions. But you better be ready for him. He's explosive. Elliott's not the same player he once was, clearly, but he's not bad, and he can handle volume of carries. They had a ton of volume last week because they got a lead. CeeDee Lamb's mostly a slot receiver. We'll get into him in a second, but that with Rush, you would love to make him a passer because this will be last week. Is basically a home game for them because they had a ton of fans show up in LA against the Rams. See, if you're the Eagles, because this is home, the fans going to be out of their mind. So week 1 against against the Bucs, that was at home. They lost and they've won 4 in a row. They've only played 2 road games. The Giants game, it was more Giants than Cowboy fans there. There were way more Cowboy fans at the Rams game. So this to me will be the test for Cooper Rush. If they get behind, the crowd will be in a frenzy. If the Eagles get up 10-0, it's going to be a long day for him.
Yes.
And that's we rarely talk about the crowd.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to Tyler Smith because this plays into him.
Right.
There's no question to me. You want to make Cooper Rush a passer, shut their run game down, make him a passer. Because he's only been have to be a passer in 1 game, and he did, but that was last year, his first game ever, and that's incredible. But this is a different animal here with the fans delay.
So, I think this is going to be a close game and a very defensive-oriented game, but I do also suspect that there's a chance that this game could fall off the rails pretty easily for Dallas. And I say that because I just see a lot of unsustainability with what they've done for the last 4 weeks. Like I mentioned, they don't run the ball well. They are
inconsistent. I'd say they're inconsistent on success.
Well, I'm just mean statistically, they're middle of the pack. Yeah, inconsistent. Yeah. You're right. Because they have had some good rushing individual performances. But their average yards per rush is 4.2. That's ranked 22nd. So it's not, over the course of the season, they just have run the ball okay. They are one of the worst 3rd down offenses in the NFL. They rank 29th. They are one of the worst red zone teams. They rank 26th. You see what I'm getting at here? Like, you don't run the ball all that great. You're terrible on 3rd down. You're terrible in the red zone, and yet your quarterback has not thrown an interception. And you've won 4 straight games. It doesn't compute to me, Adam. So I get that their defense is great, and that's my point. Is that at some point you run into a buzzsaw, like you're the luck that you're getting catches.
Oh, I see. Right. You were saying on our Fanatic show on Monday night or Tuesday night, whatever. Yeah, that's because there was a Sixers Flyers conflict Tuesday night. But by the way, we're back this Monday night, which would be cool. But yeah, there's no doubt. Like the Washington game, right? By the way, the defense won that game. They got ball control. The defense completely shut down Wentz. The defense took the game over. Their offense couldn't do anything
except throwing the ball to Devontae Smith. That they could do.
What's that?
Oh, you're talking about Dallas, or
I'm just talking about Dallas.
My fault. Go ahead.
No, because how Washington Dallas' offense or the
right.
anything against Washington. It's just the defense took over.
Yep.
There's so many subplots in this game because CeeDee Lamb, is their slot receiver. Michael Gallup's finally back with his ACL. He's not quite where he was before the injury, but he's their shot play guy. Simi Fehoko was playing a lot earlier on. He's not playing at all. Jalen Tolbert, who talked to the Cowboys, they thought he'd win. He'd be the outside receiver? Nope, it's Noah Brown who won it. He's looked pretty good. He's he's been there forever. Like this is his 6th year with them.
Yeah, yeah.
Who was mostly a special teams player and a 5th receiver for years, but he's heavily in the rotation. They'll depending if Schultz is playing, they'll go from 11 to 12 personnel. They have the ability to do both, but they're just because it's not Dak, they don't have a special passing game. When Dak's been Dak, like really good, they could be pretty special. They're just not because they don't have him, and that helps the Eagles defense tremendously.
Yeah, you mentioned Gallup being back, which is good for them. It helps them put CeeDee Lamb in the slot. More than one personnel person has told me that while CeeDee Lamb's a really good wide receiver, what he does is that he does not consistently beat man coverage on the outside. He's sort of a long strider, not necessarily a separation at the top of the route type of wide receiver like Jahan Dotson that we've seen earlier on, or certainly AJ Brown, somebody who just has that second gear deep down the field. He's much better, finding his way in zone, sitting down. I've heard the same about Justin Jefferson, by the way, who can win. Obviously, he's a great wide receiver, but he's not necessarily separation at the top of the route type guy either.
I don't that one.
A couple of people told me that if you watch, the Viking offense, I mean, he's really good at the deep over and finding his way inside but you don't see him. Well, actually, they'll say you can see him beating one-on-one coverage in the red zone because he uses his body as a great shield and he has great athletic ability. But I mean, how many times do you see him beating a safety, like a corner and a safety, reeling in a 87, 60, 70 yard?
He turns him inside out. He's such a great route runner.
He is a great route runner. That's the point. He's not a separator through speed. He was a separator through route.
Right.
I should have made that clear. Yeah.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. Yeah, boy, how the Eagles thought he was. I know it was because the staff that was there thought he was more of a slot receiver.
Right.
Not like he couldn't play slot, but to think he couldn't play on the outside of Lynn.
Yeah.
I know they weren't alone in that around the league, but man, that's a tough.
Yeah, that's true. They were not alone in that. So to get back to the wide receivers, we saw last week Arizona trying to flood the Eagles matchup zone a little bit. So I'm very interested to see this week how Jonathan Gannon might respond to some of those formations, like if they go trips left side and they have 3 receivers, or they're bunch sets, how with, especially if Josiah Scott has to play, how are they going to react? Because they didn't do a great job of being sticky against those Arizona wide receivers. The way they had
Scott actually graded out well, from what I understand.
Oh, did he? Okay,
pretty well. Yeah, solid, way better than the first game.
Okay. Well, maybe it wasn't him, but I mean, clearly Arizona guys were getting open in that zone across the middle.
What we had heard is, actually we talked about this in our Wednesday show. There's zone exchange.
Right.
There was some communication errors, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Lamb most of the time is inside, and he's a good player. He's plays tough inside. He's just not fast.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see because he's obviously bigger than Josiah Scott. So we'll see how they match that up. They also have to keep an eye on Pollard coming out of the backfield. As you said, Zeke has murdered the Eagles over the years a lot. Not the same player, but look, the Eagles' run defense has shown. See, I don't go by average per carry. I go by I go game by game what they look like, what the tape looks like. You got to be careful when you go, well, they only give him so much per carry. I'm like, did you see them this week? Did you see them that week? Right. Benjamin made him look good. So let's call it like it is by game.
Sure.
Offensive line. So this is I like this tip. This note to someone gave me. He goes, look, Tyler Smith certainly better than people thought he would be. He hit a disappointing training camp. In fact, just to get him reps, they had him compete against McGovern. McGovern beat him out. It wasn't even close.
Mm-hmm.
Really, they knew early on he had to cross-train him because he wasn't going to play. He was not going to start over Tyron Smith, and Smith lost for the season, hamstring torn off the bone. So they knew they couldn't just go with him, so they signed Peters, and they were praying that the kid would play well. And by the way, he's been above average.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have to do with him is you have to throw a lot of different, like, line games. See, he's got to communicate because he's a first-year starter. Remember, he played at Tulsa. Okay,
right.
He hasn't seen anything like this.
Right.
You got to make him think out there. You got to confuse him. Line games, stunts, twists.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the Cowboys are a big stunt team. You got to make this kid mental gymnastics. You got to make him think. And the other thing is, it's another thing. If they get behind, he won't be able to hear. It'll be silent count. you got to throw everything. I'm telling you, the fans could help the Eagles D line in front of Gannon, and
Sure, sure.
because this is his biggest game of his first six, because you're in a hostile environment. I know
Hmm.
there'll be some Cowboys fans, but it'll be like 5% Cowboys fans, even if that. And I love when the Cowboys were much better than the Eagles years ago. It was so funny because how Cowboys fans are afraid that they're going to get beaten up the games. What they do is they just open their jacket and they show the jersey, then they close it because they don't want to get.
Just to
But
let people
that's
know.
what's that?
Just to let people know. It's like a
Yeah,
little,
oh, of course. But they're so afraid they're going to get hit.
right, right. All right, so that's interesting stuff. I think that makes a lot of sense. Whenever you have a rookie offensive tackle who hasn't played a lot, to try it on a night game hostile, you want to make them think about. That was the similar sort of note we were getting on Cam Jurgens, and what the adjustment for him when he finally does get center is how he's going to sort out all the traffic and the disguise blitzes and things like that, being relatively new to the
Oh
position himself.
God,
So it makes
yeah,
sense.
he's even farther away because he only played offensive line what 2 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, I'm so interested. There's so many subplots in this game. I can't wait for our pregame show,
Hmm.
5 to 7 p.m. Eastern, on Sunday evening, because we'll have more information on injuries. We'll obviously look at the other side now in a second, but it's just there's so many subplots in this game. I can't wait to hear what Greg and Jason have to say about how they look at it.
Same,
It's just
same.
it's just a fascinating way to look at this game because both sides of the football challenges. It's going to be fun.
All right, we're going to go now talk about the Eagles offense against the Cowboys defense. First, we're going to tell you about our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Now we'll pause real quick for a word from our other great sponsors, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get the best deal. And if not, can't make it in, visit them at inside the bird at skymotorcars.com. You can also go to insidethebirds.com. I think we have a little thumbnail to click on that to get the Sky Motor Cars. But either way, I would just go straight to skymotorcars.com.
Correct. And by the way, Christmas now 2.5 months away, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Start picking that car, and I'm telling you, it's also they buy cars. Best time in our lifetime to sell cars, and they are buying cars. Trust me. I've sold
Nice.
two cars through Sky over the years, and Brett Schulter and his company. Their reviews are ridiculously great. I've never seen anything like it. You'll see 600 reviews, 598 are 5 stars.
That's what good people do, man.
Yep.
Good people to work with. All right, let's talk about the Eagles offense versus Cowboys defense. Going to be the best defense the Eagles have faced this year by far. Not even close. They're going to come after him. No, I don't mean from a blitz standpoint, because the Cowboys are not a big blitzing team. In fact, the Cowboys and the Eagles are sort of neck and neck there as far as like the middle of the pack for teams that blitz. They're around the 24-25%. But the Cowboys, see, everybody talks about we're gonna ask Greg too about this a lot. Certainly, Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence deserve a lot of attention. They're great players. But I noticed about a year or two ago, this kid Dorrance Armstrong coming on, and I'm telling you, watch for him. He is a good player. Do you remember when they had Alden Smith for a little while? I think that was 2 years ago. I remember watching the All-22 of one of the games, and I'm like, man, Alden Smith is really giving Jason Peters problems, giving him problems. And then I realized, Adam, when I went to the roster, I said, wait, hold on a second. That's not Alden Smith. And then I went and checked, and it was Dorrance Armstrong who was giving Jason Peters all sorts of issues. And I don't know if you followed I think it's True Media. They do the charts of so their most recent chart was that I saw online was your expected sack production or pass rush win rate versus your double team rate. And he, of all edge rushers, had the highest win rate among double team rate in the NFL. So, and not too far behind was DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons. So this team can throw three dudes at you who can come at you, man.
And Dante Fowler revived his career. Dan Quinn and Fowler revived their romance from Atlanta. The Falcons cut him, but of course DQ wanted him and he got him.
Yep.
And they're a little better than I thought at D tackle between Bohanna, who's going to play this week, Diggy Zua. I'm assuming his brother Owa, who's the guy who played for the Giants, same last name.
Mm-hmm.
And Neville Gallimore, Tristan Hill has been a major disappointment. He's playing better now. He's actually healthy. He was very immature when he came in. Dallas takes an unbelievable amount of rest on players. They don't care. They don't seem to care. The word around the league is they draft talent,
Yes.
big time talents, and it shows. Their DQ is not, again, he's junked his cover 3, plays a lot of cover 2, mixes it up. He'll play some man, pre-snap movement, stunts. They're one of the top stunt teams in the NFL. They do so much stuff. I give them credit for evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to say the best defense in the NFL, I'm not going to argue with it. They're phenomenal. They're hard to decipher. They're super deep, great rotation. This kid, Sam Williams, by the way, 54. Stand-up pass rusher.
Yep.
Out of Mississippi. He's another guy with some off-field concerns.
Yeah.
He's contributing. They're so deep. My goodness. The kid Galston, 99, I know Chauncey Galston was drafted last year in the 3rd round, but you mentioned Armstrong was a stud. All of a sudden you go, wow, this is going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. I mean, this is the strength of their defense. And I feel like the Cowboys over the last, I don't know, I like it. Is it the Eagles model? But they've certainly been big on drafting in the trenches more than I remember them doing in, like, say, the early 2000s. I mean, they've hit offensive line hard. Whether it was who's the center they had for the longest time from Wisconsin who was really good.
Who retired, right?
Yeah, Travis Frederick. That's right. At one point they had Frederick and Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. Zach Martin's still really good. Terrence Steele has wound up being a good find for them. And of course, on defense, Tristan Hill's starting to come along a little bit better. So they're big into addressing the trenches like the Eagles are now. And everybody always waits for them to make the splash move because of the Cowboys, but they've really drafted pass rushers and offensive linemen pretty early.
It's so funny you said that because I'd have to look it up, but when Jerry was out of control of free agency, remember, like, he had 2 Roy Williams, he had the safety and the receiver.
Yeah, remember when they had to tie him down to keep him from drafting Johnny Manziel?
Right, stuff like that. So he doesn't do that anymore. No, he's actually very disciplined in terms of not going in free agency. The problem, the one issue that he has is, as I just said a couple minutes ago, they take such character risks.
Mm-hmm.
And Parsons, by the way, a lot of teams had issues with his character.
They did.
And right now the Cowboys have the last laugh. Right now he's arguably the NFL's best defensive player. Obviously it's subjective. You want to say Donald, no one's going to argue with you.
Yeah.
He's now 30.
Clearly the best edge rusher.
What's that?
Clearly the best edge rusher in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah.
And also here's another thing that we should talk about. DQ, I'm telling you, Parsons would not be as good as he is if not for Dan Quinn. Why? He did not make him static. He made a decision that he wouldn't be a middle linebacker. He wouldn't be a strong side linebacker. He wouldn't be a DN. He'd be everything.
Yep.
And that is such good coaching. Coaching is understanding what you're given and seeing traits and not worrying about what he did in college.
Mm-hmm.
He saw unbelievable traits, and that's phenomenal coaching.
And so he moves around, right? He lines up over right tackle, lines up over left tackle.
Yeah, I mean, he might line up more one side than the next.
Mm-hmm.
But also, sometimes due to the matchup, like obviously this week, if Mailata doesn't play, and even if he plays, he's not going to be healthy. They know this.
Yeah.
I'm going to test him out immediately. I'm 100% testing him out.
Oh, sure.
I'm going after him. I'm lining up Parsons. I'll line up Tank Lawrence, who's strong as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Long and strong as hell. I mean, I'm doing everything I can to go after Mailata with that injury. And if it's not, if it's Driscoll, actually all 3 of them. Okay, anyone who lines up there, I'm going after.
Right. It's gonna be a war in the trenches, man. It's gonna be really fun to watch. So the back end of the Dallas defense, you mentioned how deep they are in the secondary. They're really good at safety, which not a lot of teams have.
They're 4 deep.
Excellent safety depth. Yeah, I mean that's hard. They are 4 deep.
Yeah, because Curse is back, so they'll play Wilson's quasi starter anyway, and Hooker is sort of reviving his career. He's not been the player that the Colts thought they were getting because he got hurt so much, but
right.
Then they got the Mukoamu, the kid, the 6th rounder who they like out of South Carolina, who's 6'4", by the way, who's played a little bit.
Wow.
He's got talent. They're they're not. Now the thing is, they're not real deep at linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Anthony Barr to revive his career.
Yeah.
Who? It's a funny thing. He was a big time pass rusher at UCLA, and then Zimmer made him a strong side linebacker and a coverage linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So they have him, Van Der Esch, Micah Parsons, obviously when he plays linebacker, Jabril Cox, who's come out from a bad knee injury.
Right.
Not a lot of depth there, but they're super deep at corner.
Well, that's why they play a lot of nickel and dime, right? I mean, they
right.
they
They're
hide it.
heavy nickel team. So Brown's played nickel. He's played outside. Trevon Diggs, we know he's talented. He's done well against the Eagles, but he can give a play. Jordan Lewis is a physical safety. Kid Bland.
Someone told me, by the way, maybe was it Jason Avant? Was he getting an early watch on him, that Malik Hooker's been playing at a pretty good level?
Yeah, he's healthy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Healthy.
That's all. That's always been the kid. Just is he healthy enough? Yeah.
Yep. And then Jordan Lewis. Yeah, Jordan Lewis is a big corner. Kelvin Joseph, who had pretty significant off the field issues at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Or prior to Kentucky, I think he was a transfer. He's there as well. This is a super deep team. It's simple. It's coaching staff. This is a coach's game to me. Both staffs. I rarely say this. I think I might have said it one time last year. But this is a coach's game. It's strategy. John Fossil, by the way, is an outstanding special teams coach. We can usually tell the late Jim's son. It's Bones is his nickname. He's really good. Kellen Moore's really smart. I know you took a shot at McCarthy there. You know, they win in spite of McCarthy, maybe so. But this is, I cannot wait to see this game because it's so even, folks. Are you going to force me to pick a side here?
You mean when we go through our score prediction? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to force you to.
I just
want to go through one topic because then we'll get to it more. But the Cowboys don't blitz a lot, but I mean, I think if you are Dan Quinn and you saw the Eagles' response to blitzing last week, which is just basically to throw a screen every time, then maybe you might want to dial up the pressure. And then we talked about Kenneth Gainwell's issues and the Eagles just aren't good with running backs and pass protection. I don't think Miles Sanders is great at it, and Kenny Gainwell struggles. So if it's like a third down and you see Gainwell out there, be interesting to see if Dan Quinn decides to dial up some extra man pressures to make Gainwell have to stay in and block somebody. And it'll also be interesting to see how does Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. They really. I was impressed by the answer that Nick Sirianni gave earlier in this week. He was asked about how much autonomy Jalen has to change plays, and he says he's got a little bit more than last year, but that they really try to build in a playbook where he doesn't have to change the play. They say he want to keep it simple. Then he sort of said we did this for Phillip Rivers and Andrew Luck, and I was like a little surprised by that because I thought, watching those guys, that they had a little bit more autonomy at the line. I think he was just trying to cover to not cover because Jalen Hurts doesn't need to make cover for him, but it's just sort of just trying to lump saying like, hey, I've done this before. It's not just Jalen Hurts.
Well, there are a lot of option routes. Yeah, there's certain things that are built in there. They know by coverage. Okay, I know where the guy's going to go against this coverage.
Right.
Sure, pre-snap they know that, but and that's the other thing. DQ does some pre-snap, post-snap movement.
Right.
This is going to be coach's game. Get Hurts ready. He's going to see some things he hasn't really seen before because DQ is bringing it. It's the same defense as last year, but he's doing different things he wasn't really doing as much.
Right.
Deeper.
Right.
So this is and boy, Mailata. Jeff Stallin's very important here. As of Friday morning, we have no idea who the left tackle is going to be.
Right.
It's funny. The Cowboys have had problems with kickers. Brett Maher, I don't know how many times he's been on and off the team. He's back. He's back. It's fascinating. It's really, this is a chess match game. Look, I would love it to be the NFC Championship game.
That would be amazing if that could happen.
Like 1980.
That would be unbelievable. I was going to say, I'd be like turning back the clock like 40 years. Holy cow.
Oh my God. If that
would be, I don't know if this town can handle that.
You couldn't. No, this, it's so funny. I grew up in the 86er Celtics, which at the Spectrum was unbelievably loud. And you literally, because the Spectrum, it was the hardest of all of our stadiums to hear, I thought. I don't know what anyone else thinks, but I thought it was like next to impossible. For Sixer Celtics. I hated the Celtics. I hated everything about them. The green, the damn green Converse, Larry Bird wore, and for those of you old enough, Jerry Seasting was annoying, and ML Carr's
everybody hated ML Carr. I mean, everybody hated ML Carr.
I hated him with the damn towel.
The towel.
I hated him. I just despised him, and I love Bird as a player, but I hate him because he was a Celtic. And Danny Ainge, oh, he's another. I don't want to say
Oh man, hate the
he's
face
a
guy.
baby. I
Yeah,
hated him.
yeah.
But growing up here, Danny White, because he was a punter quarterback, was so bizarre, and he was a great punter too.
From Delaware, I believe.
Is he from? I don't know where the hell. I know he played Arizona State, but Mosher, but I don't know where. Is he from?
Danny White was the. Oh no, I'm thinking of who's the edge rusher for the Cowboys? That
Oh
was
no, Randy White.
Randy White. I'm sorry, I thought you said Randy White. Okay.
54. What do they call him? Man. What was
I forget what his nickname was. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Manimal. I think Manimal maybe.
That was a great show in the '80s.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, NBC was it NBC?
Yeah, I was a big fan.
But to finish this off, it's such a pick 'em game. I have no idea who to pick.
Yeah, it's tough. All right. Well, we will get to our picks right now. As a matter of fact, do you want to go first?
Yeah,
All right. What do you got? Tell me who's going to win.
because Cooper Rush is the quarterback.
Hold on. Let me give you the Rivers Casino and Sportsbook line and spread on the and total on the game. Right now, the Eagles are. I'm shocked by this, by the way. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites with an over/under of 42. Now, think about it, that's a pretty low total. So if they're going to win this game by 7 points, but the total is going to be, according to Rivers Sportsbook, under 42 or under, that's an interesting kind of final score.
It is. Yeah.
So what do you think?
I've got it. I want to check the rain because I know it's going to rain overnight. But no,
The tropical storm Caplan at it again.
early Monday morning. Yeah. Well, wait. Yeah. I would say I've got it 23-20 Eagles.
23-20 Eagles.
And
All
a
right.
Dicker the kicker game-winning field goal.
Nice. That's a good one. All right. You really think it ends on a Dicker field goal? Is that what you got?
I'm having fun with it. I may change my mind when
Okay.
we do the show live on Sunday night, but it's so hard to pick. Could I change my mind and pick Dallas?
It's within your right if you want to. I won't hold you. I won't. Obviously, when we do our pregame show, we give our records. So whatever you pick on the pregame show will be officially your pick. But right now,
here's why. One more thing before we move your pick. See, here's the thing. I said earlier, if you make Cooper Rush a thrower, he hasn't really had to do it. I know he did it one game last year, and he obviously did very well in the first start.
Yep.
At this point, I think we're starting to see that he's. I don't want to say he's limited. He's just not. You see why he's a backup. I've watched a bunch of stuff on him this week.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Eagles will match up well on the outside. I think they'll be able to handle between Slay and Bradbury. I don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah.
They'll be fine against him. It's just the run defense has shown some leaks at times.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as bad as people are saying. I think that's a little bit overstated, but yeah, if they give up some plays, sure as hell. They sometimes they've concerned me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, you got to keep an eye on this. But overall, this is a pick 'em game. I'm going to pick the home team because they got the better quarterback.
All right. See, now I agree. You say this is a pick 'em game. It's crazy that they're 6.5-point favorites. So
3 point for home field. What would be?
Yeah. So that would three. Well, if it's a pick 'em game, it's an even game. Then it would be 3 or 3.5 for the Eagles.
I would. Okay. So here's if this was in a neutral field, I would have the Eagles at 3.5 or 4 points, probably 3.5.
Right.
And if Dak was playing, probably even.
Okay, that makes sense. And then 6.5 makes sense at home. I have the Eagles scoring 19 points.
Oh, really low score.
And the Cowboys scoring 12.
Oh, 19-12. Wow.
19-12.
A high score in baseball.
What's that?
High score in baseball game. Okay.
Yes. That's like what game is that game 6 of Phillies Blue Jays World Series in 93? What was that?
What it was? I don't even know.
No, I'm just kidding. Kidding.
Just don't say Joe Carter in a home run.
No, I would never do that. This is not the time to be talking about that. This is the time to be talking only good vibes for the Philadelphia Phillies. And by the way, Sunday could be an amazing day. It could be theoretically, I mean, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, most people listen to a Friday morning. So if the Phillies win Friday, right? And let's see, win Saturday, then wait, is Sunday is there a game Sunday now? Hold on, I have to think about this.
Well, if they win Friday and Saturday, series is over.
Right,
That's
right,
that bye.
right. If they win Friday, Saturday, so Sunday's an off day for the Phillies and Braves, no matter what. Like if it's going 5, though, I think that's a day off, is it not?
No, it's
Or
not. No, they play Sunday at 4:37. Why do they say what is a seven? Why do they?
4:37? Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I'm getting my day. So theoretically, Sunday afternoon could be a closeout
Oh my
game
God!
for
Can
the
you imagine if
Phillies,
the Eagle?
and then Sunday night, Eagles Cowboys.
No, that by the way, that's Sunny. So wait a minute. Are they really? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Hold on a second.
What's that?
You're going to tell me there's not a day off from Saturday to Sunday for
I thought
travel day?
that. Are you sure that's correct?
I'm looking at MLB.com. It's a
Oh,
Sunday
because you're right. It's really. It's not like it takes a lot to get from Philly to Atlanta. By the way, I
two
mean
hours,
that.
but no, but it's like why wouldn't you have an extra day? It's stupid.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, because I guess Atlanta's not. I mean, they have the whole everything's all on the same schedule, right?
I hate that.
But
All right.
the point I'm making was that Sunday, no matter what, that game would be in Atlanta. So it's not like you're going
Yeah,
from
yeah, yeah. Sure, the
yeah,
traffic. You
yeah.
can
But
say sure.
nonetheless, you're watching the game. You might watch the Phillies close it out and then go to the Linc and watch Eagles Cowboys. Could be a
Right.
monumental day in Philadelphia sports history on Sunday.
Yeah, it would be really cool, no doubt about it.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Tyler Strasser, always doing a great job. And big thanks to you, our followers, for flying with us inside the birds.